Alright, so hey everybody, my name is Hoyon and I'm running to be AASU co-president. Before I begin, I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out. Like, it's a Friday night, we're all tired, it's been a long week, but you guys are here instead of getting hammered. So I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. So I guess a little bit about my qualifications and my involvement on campus. Since arriving here in Madison, I've been an intern on the ASM Legislative Affairs Committee. Before I was appointed to sit on a Student Services Finance Committee, which we just had our last meeting yesterday. So I was the secretary of this committee, and we worked to allocate over $32 million in segregated fees. So we work with budget and financial matters and funding matters relating to student orgs such as the Campus Women's Center. We also work with Sex Out Loud, FH King, and we also worked with UHS and Rec Sports and other university bodies. So through the SSFC, I was appointed to sit on the Student Transportation Board, where I worked with the university admin and Madison Metro to negotiate the bus contracts for the Bus 80 and the Unlimited bus ride pass. Segregated fees did not increase in that area, so you'll be glad, I think. So enough about my qualifications. If I were given the privilege of serving on the board, my primary objective would be to bridge a gap between the Asian American community and the student body in general, so the general student population in Madison. So the thing is, we make a really significant portion of the campus. Even though we're a small percentage, we are a significant number on campus. But despite that, we are very detached from what goes on campus. We are very silent and we're very invisible. So something I really want to work on is creating that visibility, making our voices more powerful and more heard. Some of you have heard this from me, but the way I describe campus is that if campus were a white male, we'd be a pimple. We're noticed, thank you, we're noticed, and people we're looked at, but we're just sort of we're let go, it's like, hey, here's a pimple, that's it. And that's something that really needs to be addressed, because we are such a significant portion of this community, and our voices matter, our ideas matter, and the way issues and problems affect us matters, because we are a part of the student population. So I guess in that vein, what I want to do is to turn AASU into an umbrella org for Asian Americans as well as for other minorities on campus. So with the help of the fellow board members, I really want AASU to turn into a body that provides resources. I want us to share opportunities for political activism and involvement, and I really want us to turn into a group that creates social and educational networking events within the minority committee, not just confined to the Asian American population. So how I'm going to do that? This is going to be pretty broad, and there's really no right way of doing this because it's such a long-term goal. But something I really want to work on is to expand our educational workshops. Don't get me wrong, guys. ASU has great workshops and stuff, but really, working to expand our educational programming so that we have greater collaboration between, student groups, not just Asian American, but also Black, Hispanic, Native American. And this allows us to promote collaboration between other groups, and increase our membership, and it can begin the process of establishing ourselves as the Asian American voice on campus. With the finance chair, I really want to work to kickstart our process of becoming a GSSF group. And what that means is that a GSSF group receives yearly budgets of $80,000 a year, and that's a really big amount, considering that we are just students. So these budgets, like a budget of that size, can allow us to start providing grants and funding to support the Asian American community, and it can allow us to provide greater and more stimulating educational and social programming. With the social chair, I really want to work to increase our networking within orgs because networking is so crucial for outreach and building our membership base and creating that core retention that we really kind of lack. And I also want to create and maintain a strong alumni relationship with our graduates because it's important. It's not just important to work with the members and with other Asian American orgs on campus. It's also important to make sure that we do outreach to people who have graduated to learn what they have done, learn how how ASU has benefited them and how they can help us and things like that. Yeah, so I guess, I just wanted to create a stronger Asian American presence on campus. I want us to be a more permanent and powerful voice in student government, and that's really something that really is really lacking. Thank you. Joe.
One of your board members is like sassing you in front of new members. How are you going to handle that?
What, sorry?
If one of your board members is like sassing you, like right in front of specifically new members, how are you going to handle that?
Sassing me how? I'm sorry, I don't understand I'm afraid I don't understand the nature of this scenario.
Taking orders, like literally, like new members are watching as like this board member is like, you're giving them orders and like they're not.
And they're not doing it, like they're not.
They're just straight up like, no.
Oh. Well, I mean, I guess that's something that's hard to address when it happens, but to avoid that kind of situation, it's important to create like a system of transparency and accountability to show that like, hey, I'm here doing this. You know what I'm doing. You know what I'm working on. It's accountable. It's transparent. So it prevents that sort of like, oh, here's this guy who doesn't know what he's doing. Let's not listen to him. Like creating that foundation to like people so that people know that the board is actually doing work. Jason.
So this organization is Asian American,
That's right.
not being born in America.
Yeah.
What makes you qualified to be president?
So my Asian American, I feel like I really fit in with the Asian American community. Yeah, you're right. I grew up abroad. I'm actually an international student technically, but I feel like my experience growing up and the struggles that I've had with my identity is very much similar to the Asian American experience. I grew up in a international school. English was a primary language. Honestly, English is my first language. I cannot speak Thai or Korean to save my life. So there's this sort of stigma held against like Thai kids who go to like American or British schools in Bangkok. We're labeled as like, that Thai kid who doesn't speak Thai. Parents will pity us because we can't pronounce a word. Cab drivers think that we're from Malaysia or something. And there's this sort of struggle because there's a struggle that a lot of kids go through who aren't very in touch with their Thai roots. And that's something I really went through. Like there's this time where I really did not want to identify myself as Thai or Korean. It was really difficult, and that sort of struggle with my identity and coming to terms with the fact that although Thailand and Bangkok is my home, I don't really fit in, and that kind of struggle is really something I grew up with. Hongi.
What kind of steps would you take to make AASU truly represent interests of the Asian American community, and how would you voice that to campus at the university?
Well, creating, I spoke briefly about creating that network between Asian American orgs as well as with other minority groups on campus, and creating that network and creating a system where we are the go-to resource for Asian American orgs. We are the go-to resource for Asian American students on campus, like freshmen who don't know where to go. They want to come to us, that kind of thing. Allowing us to turn into that sort of org, and allowing us to have that reputation on campus is something I really want to work on. So, once we have that, once we establish ourselves as that umbrella org, we can really begin to advocate for the Asian American interests. Jason.
Why should the other Asian organization come to AASU?
Because we can provide the resources that they can use to excel.
What resources?
Funding, grants, educational programs. I mean, I believe we are the only Asian American org that provides this sort of educational programming. So I guess being that advocate for the Asian American identity, as opposed to being an advocate for the Vietnamese American, Hmong American, Korean American identity, we can really become that resource center. Oh God, Amy? Sorry.
As you expand the view of being an Asian American and including more and more people, you're going to end up overlooking smaller communities that are ignored. How do you intend to address that?
Smaller communities?
Yeah, like the Korean adoptee population, we don't talk about them.
That's a very good question. I guess we'll just have to address that. We have to address them. We have to branch out and network with them. I mean, if you are, as I said, if you are to truly become like a voice, like an advocate and a voice on campus for minorities, we can't confine ourselves to the Asian American population. That just won't do.
No, I'm saying like as you like broaden, like the people you include is going to broaden. So how do you include everyone without ignoring like different aspects of people? I don't know how to explain that.
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand.
Never mind. It's good.
Sorry.
To what extent is working with the Asian American Studies Department like important to you? If you respond in the affirmative, how do you intend to work?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, to what extent is working with the Asian American Studies Department important to you? If you respond in the affirmative, how so?
Oh, well, it's very important because, well, I mean, obviously, outreach and education is something that we really need to do in order to advocate for the Asian American student population, to create that understanding, like that educational component that AASU has is extremely crucial. So working with the Asian American department obviously is very important. Can you repeat the second part of the question?
Okay, so you've already answered in the affirmative.
Yeah.
Like, do you intend to work with them, host workshops with them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's up to the education chair, but I will, that's something I really support, and I would really definitely encourage every member to sort of go along with that.
You're also running for education, and to go off this question,
Education?
You are?
I'm not.
Oh, sorry, this person under you, I'm sorry.
I'm not.
But-
sorry.
It is important to work with the Asian American department.
Absolutely.
If your education chair did come up to you, what's something you would do to try and encourage it or try to help them?
Oh, well, okay, so something I really want to work on is creating the system of trust and support within the group. So, something that I feel like a lot of student groups lack is this sort of, if I can't fulfill my responsibilities and I somehow forget or I just don't inform people about that, then my responsibilities just somehow are overlooked, and that causes a lot of problems. So something I really want to work on is creating the system support and creating like this system where people actually take initiative. If I see that the education chair isn't reaching out to this extremely important resource, I would talk to the education chair, bounce back ideas and stuff. If this is something that we decide that is not good, then obviously I'm not gonna like go all dictator on them. But like obviously creating this, hey, here's something you can do, environment is something that's very important. So I would totally do that. Did you have a question?
Kia has a question.
Okay, great.
Go ahead.
Oh yes. If you won't be a kitchen utensil, we're gonna be
A kitchen
wine.
utensil. Oh man. I'd be a spork. I think that's what it's called. A spork. It's like a fork. It's like a spoon, but with like nothing inside.
Sport.
Yeah. Because honestly, like you can't really just use a spoon, and you can't really just use a fork. Why not use both? Catch all kind of thing.
Sorry, one last question. So, in your speech, you talked, it sounds like you have a lot of goals and ambition to move ASU forward, but, let's say, like, what if, like, your board is not with you on the same page, they don't have the same vision as you, how are you going to tackle that, and how are you going to go about that? Not just within, like, the organization, but sometimes when you are the only passionate individual or, like, the only social advocate in a group, whether if it's like in your community or like in your organization, sometimes if you're the only one, it can get really disappointing, and sometimes you might feel like you want to give up. So how are you going to continue to motivate yourself, but not just that, but get your board or like your community like on the same page and to fulfill those goals and ambitions?
Well, I guess if you're talking about motivation and like energy, that's like, is that what you're talking about? Like the level of energy that sort of dissipates as the year goes on. Is that what you're talking about?
Energy and also like the motivation.
Okay, well, I know ASU has like a retreat before every semester, and something I really want to work on is like using the energy and the momentum that comes out of these retreats, right? Like you come out of retreat, you say, oh yeah, let's do all these things. We just did all this like stuff at a retreat. Let's push it forward. But like with a lot of groups as well, there's very little effort to create this like harness this momentum and use it to like push everything forward. So I guess creating having one-on-one meetings with like confidential one-on-one meetings with board members, assessing like the levels of, how are you feeling about this? How are you feeling about the org as a whole and as your position in the org? And creating that system where everyone is supportive of each other is really important because, as I said, if you don't stick your neck out for someone, and you don't support people when they, I don't want to use the word fail, but when you stick your neck out for people when they fail to achieve their responsibilities, there's very little incentive for this person to continue to pick themselves up and then create, you know what I mean? I'm sorry if I'm being vague, but so allowing this environment to foster is something that's very important to me. You support each other so that that if you're lacking motivation or if you don't have the energy or you have a midterm and you really don't want to do this, someone else will help you out with this. Someone else will be there to take up your responsibilities and make sure that you get the job done.
Thank you.
Thank you.